what happened here. Hold on. All right. There we go. From the Banner offices along the Inner Harbor is the Banner Ravens podcast. Ignore that technical flub at the beginning. Got a great show for you today on this Thursday in January. Happy January. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy January, as they say.
January, as they say. We're going to have Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot on to break down this all-important matchup, this win or go home game in Week 18 between the Ravens and Steelers. All that and much, much more. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time.
All right, Paul Mancano, Jonas, Shaffer here with you live on New Year's Day, and we're joined by Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot to get the other side of this matchup between the Ravens and Steelers in Week 18. Obviously, the AFC North comes down to this game, and Alex does great work over at Steelers Depot, co-host of the Terrible Podcast with Dave Bryan. You can also follow him on X at Alex_Kozora. Alex, how you feeling about this matchup? And in particular, how you feeling about how things played out between the Steelers and Browns a few days ago?
Nervous in general, which is a default, I think, status of any Steelers fan or any Steelers analyst. And from the Browns game, it's just a squandered opportunity. And I think about this Ravens game upcoming on Sunday night at Pittsburgh, loses that one. They will have lost their last three games in which they could have clinched the AFC North. The Baltimore game last year, the Browns game last week, obviously, and then the Ravens game this Sunday. So, you know, it's a typical Steelers where they can beat Detroit, upset them, and then go lay an egg at Cleveland. And it really makes for all the marbles against Baltimore on Sunday.
Alex, obviously, in Baltimore, Ravens fans have their own pretty fraught relationship with Harbaugh. I think the way that things have gone off the rails this year has definitely turned a lot of Ravens fans against John Harbaugh. Has anything about how this season has gone in Pittsburgh changed, like, anything about a certain segment, whether it's a minority, majority of Steelers fans feel about Mike Tomlin? And, do you kind of have any sense for what might come next if the Steelers lose and this season ends short of the playoffs?
I don't know if there's been a change in terms of the fan base's reaction to Tomlin, but just an increase, a furtherance, if that's a word, about the fan base really being out on Tomlin. I wrote this after the Bills loss earlier this year. I think that Tomlin had lost the fan base and was going to struggle to get them back, even with the team winning the next three games, including that big win over Baltimore. It's all about the final results. And for a team that has not won a playoff game since 2016, for a team that doesn't want to just tout having a non-losing season or 9 wins or 10 wins, a team that feels stuck in purgatory in a lot of ways, this fringe wild card team, the win 9, the win 10, maybe they get in, maybe they don't, they get bounced in the first round. That has been frustrating and not to the standard of the Steelers. And for a year where you brought in Aaron Rodgers and kind of made some big swings in an AFC where things are pretty wide open, that frustration only mounts. And if Pittsburgh does drop this game, you'll have 2 straight seasons of really a collapse, losing the last 5 games, including that wildcard game to Baltimore last year. And then it would just be, a note, if you lose this game, you're going to get booed off your home field in a game in which you're eliminated by your arch rival, which will really say a lot. Now, to the greater question, a more important question of this Tomlin return, I still think he does. I don't think Art Rooney's going to make that change. I don't think Tomlin has a desire to walk away. Some have said, will he go to a different team, a better roster? Will he want to go on a TV? He doesn't want to run from a challenge. He's talked about embracing the challenge, and Pittsburgh is home to him. So I think he will be back, much to the chagrin of a fan base.
It's so fascinating to see the narratives around these two head coaches obviously coming into this matchup, because I think if you look at a national perspective and you ask the average NFL fan about Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh, you'll get the same response, which is those guys are excellent coaches. They're both Super Bowl champions. They both have had long stretches of success in their respective cities. And a lot of NFL fan bases would take either of those guys over the guy that they currently have at the helm. And then you ask a Ravens fan or a Steelers fan, and their perspective is completely different. And that's where the frustration comes from. Let's talk about the offense in this game, because I'll be honest, that Browns game, I think everybody in Baltimore was tuning into that game, and not Aaron Rodgers' best game, not the best game from that Steelers offense, obviously dealing without DK Metcalf. How do you think that Steelers offense can learn from that pretty putrid performance against the Browns? And do you think they'll have any answers for what went wrong against Cleveland?
Well, I think a lot of that will come in Baltimore's plan. In that first matchup against Pittsburgh, Baltimore played a ton of man coverage and paid the price for it. A lot of isolation on DK Metcalf. Obviously, that won't be an issue with Metcalf still suspended. So will Baltimore follow Cleveland's plan, which was man heavy? They're great corners in Denzel Ward and Tyson Campbell that really took away Pittsburgh's receivers. They could not separate. They could not get a pass game going. I know Baltimore's been playing some more zone defense lately, so it's kind of a question of go with what's been maybe working a bit more lately with the zone defense, or kind of go back to man, given Pittsburgh's struggles against Cleveland. So that'll be interesting. But the question is, can Pittsburgh scheme things up? Can somebody win their one-on-one? It's hard to have confidence in a receiver trio of Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Adam Thielen, Scotty Miller. Roman Wilson's been invisible and really struggled to see the field. I think for Pittsburgh, they have to be able to involve the tight ends more. Pat Frymuth is going to be one of their best weapons. They got to get running back Kenneth Gainwell the ball more. The one advantage that Pittsburgh will have in this game, at least the one difference from Cleveland, is you won't have to dedicate all the help to one pass rusher the way that Pittsburgh did against Myles Garrett. All the chip help, all the slide, all the attention, where fewer guys are in the pattern. You got 3 guys going out with 7 in coverage. You can really kind of run more of an offense with more route combinations, because Baltimore lacks that pass rush threat. Nobody with more than 4 sacks this season. So that's going to be the difference in this game. Can Pittsburgh get more creative on offense? Can they feel a little freer, not having to worry about that pass rusher? But still, Ravens have a good secondary. The run defense is pretty strong. Pittsburgh ran for 34 yards in that first matchup. It's going to be tough sledding for this offense.
Alex, as a quick follow-up to that, we know that Aaron Rodgers has one of the quickest triggers in the NFL this year. When the Ravens played the Steelers in Week 14, their pass rush just did not get home at all. I think they had maybe one quarterback hit. Do you have any kind of faith in Aaron Rodgers being able to change his spots at this point and maybe become a guy who holds onto the ball longer in expectation that this Ravens defense won't get home and he might not get hit as often as he would have been against Cleveland? Or are you just kind of resigned to the possibility that he's going to be a guy who's hitting the end of his drop and get rid of that ball?
I mean, generally speaking, he's going to be the latter, where the ball's going to come out quick. He's got the quickest release in football, about 2.4 seconds on average this season. But he has shown comfort to extend the play when need be. So the question is, 90% of the time the ball is going to come out quick against Baltimore. That's just the MO of Rodgers in this offense in which it's been built around. But can there be those 1 or 2 scramble drill moments where you create a big play off of that? Rodgers has gotten more comfortable behind this offensive line. And if there is certainly a feather in the cap of this offense, this young offensive line has really progressed well, from Zach Frazier at center, Mason McCormick at right guard. Troy Fautani has become a real elite pass protector at right tackle. They got a backup left tackle, Dylan Cook, holding his own, maybe getting healthy with Isaac Seumalo at left guard. So I think Rodgers has certainly felt more comfortable behind this offensive line and has extended the play a bit more often this latter half of the season. So that'll be kind of maybe the X factor. Can Rodgers kind of turn back the clock one more time, one last play for a big completion against Baltimore? These games are always close, and so the difference might be the margins of who makes that extended play, Lamar if he plays, or Aaron Rodgers. So that's kind of what I'm watching for.
Yeah, and Alex, you mentioned the Ravens secondary. Certainly the talent is there for this Ravens secondary. I think the frustration has come from Ravens fans is that they don't play up to their talent level. We saw that obviously in Week 14 when these two teams met, but DK Metcalf was a big factor in that game, and they'll be without him again as he serves his 2-game suspension. On the other side of the ball, TJ Watt still limited in practice this week. Don't yet know if he is going to return to the field. If he does, that could be a big issue for the Ravens, because in 17 games against the Ravens, TJ Watt has 17 sacks. And obviously there was talk earlier in the season about the Steelers not being excellent against the run. And I know some Steelers fans were pointing fingers towards TJ Watt at that time. Do you think that TJ Watt is more impactful right now and could be more impactful, especially against Derrick Henry, as a run defender or as a guy who's going to pin his ears back and rush the passer?
Well, I think what makes TJ Watt pretty unique from the group of really elite pass rushers is he brings that well-rounded game. Whereas run defense, there is really no drop-off or separation or space between his pass rush and run defense. But obviously, when you're facing Baltimore and their heavy commitment to the run, you need to stop the run first and foremost. That's always Pittsburgh's plan. And so what Watt can do against the run is going to be maybe the most impactful thing of all. But as a pass rusher, the numbers aren't great this year, even whenever he was healthy. 7 sacks is not a TJ Watt type of season, but he still commands so much attention for an offense. Every offense has to start their game plan around TJ Watt. And, Rosengarten's a good right tackle, but probably not that guy that you trust to go out there one-on-one the entire game. And so there's that domino effect that whenever Watt is getting more attention, it frees up others. And just in the way that, Pittsburgh struggled because of the attention they had to give to Myles Garrett, it kind of hamstrings offenses all the more. But certainly, given Baltimore's personality, really kind of rediscovering that run game. Derrick Henry, 36 carries last week. I'm also realizing, Patrick Carr's played his high snap count the last 2 games too. So they've really kind of gotten back to bread and butter, fullback, I formation, give the ball to Derrick Henry, keep Mitchell as well. And so it starts with stopping the run. Pittsburgh allowed 217 in that last game to Baltimore. Really can't happen again. So Watt's impact versus the run is going to be paramount.
Let's talk about that run defense, Alex. A big guy who I think a lot of Ravens fans may not know or appreciate is Derek Harmon. Obviously, he's a guy who Mike Tomlin highlighted on draft night. One of the reasons they took him was because they love his run defense, and Lord knows the Steelers needed to improve their run defense based on what the Ravens did to him at the end of last year. Could you just give people a sense of what he means to this Steelers defense? Because obviously he wasn't able to play in week 14, but you see a lot of rookies kind of come on strong late in their rookie season. And we've really seen the Steelers run defense bow up in recent weeks.
Yeah, it's rare for, I think, a rookie, especially in Pittsburgh, to have such an impact. And even Mike Tomlin, who typically doesn't give his flowers to rookies, he doesn't want those guys to get too full of themselves, has kind of leaned into the jokes and memes of, asked why is the run defense better? He said, Derek Harmon. And it has really felt like that kind of difference. The yards per game allowed when Harmon's on the field versus when he's not is really stark. And obviously was not out there for that week 14 game, was battling a knee injury that he's now back from. So he's really been good against the run. As a pass rusher, there's still work to do, but he's been really, really steady and strong against the run. And Pittsburgh has to be stout. Cam Hayward's still an excellent run defender. So you have him, you have Derek Harmon, you got a good foundation to start with. While giving up 217 to Baltimore is certainly not an ideal performance, I thought the run defense was not terrible. It was certainly better than the wild card game last year. Derrick Henry held to 98 yards, under 4 yards per carry. They spent a lot of attention on Henry and kind of let Lamar run a little bit more. I know Mitchell hit Pittsburgh for that big run, and that can't happen again. But I think the run defense has certainly gotten better, and Harmon's inclusion will only aid in that effort.
We talked about the DK Metcalf less Steelers offense against this Ravens secondary. We talked about the Ravens rushing attack against the Steelers defense. Is there another matchup in particular that you're looking forward to watching on Sunday night?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have one in mind. Mark Andrews, the tight ends. I know they haven't been maybe the biggest constant source of production this year. It's funny, both Pittsburgh and Baltimore only have one player over 500 receiving yards this year. So just kind of seeing some of the parallels there. But Andrews is always a threat. I know likely can make plays. Nearly had that touchdown, the very controversial moment in week 14. So Pittsburgh's, linebackers and safeties on those tight ends, I think will be a big factor in this one. Can you tackle Zay Flowers? He's so slippery after the catch. He's got 9 forced missed tackles this year. That's tied for most of any wide receiver in the NFL. And then I like the trenches too. Travis Jones against Isaac Seumalo, should he play, and Zach Frazier. I think that's a really fun battle up front. Pittsburgh has to run the ball, and Baltimore's, I think, always tough to run on. And Pittsburgh ran for 34 yards in that first matchup. That can't happen again with a pass game that's without DK Metcalf. The other big loss for Pittsburgh is no Darnell Washington, who's one of the best blocking tight end in football. And so Pittsburgh has to be able to run. They have to really get this offensive line to get some movement up front. If they can't do that, they can't pass the ball, it's going to be a long day.
Alex, let's get you out on this one. I saw earlier in the week that you were not feeling especially optimistic about the Steelers' chances in this one. Has that changed at all? Do you have a sense for how this game could go on Sunday night?
It hasn't, although the saving grace is I've been so bad with predictions this year. I'm literally just do the opposite of whatever I say, and it has come true. So I get mocked for it, and I wear that badge of honor. But yeah, my optimism really just is not there. I think for Pittsburgh, the run game struggles. They run the ball well this year overall and have gotten better, but Baltimore, I think, is just a tough front to run on. Generally, historically, Pittsburgh against Baltimore, and without a pass game that's really going to be elevated, without DK Metcalf, it's hard to really see a victory. So is it possible? Pittsburgh is always full of surprises. They've certainly flip-flop the script this year. Beating Baltimore the first time was a surprise. Beating Detroit a surprise. Losing to Cleveland a surprise. So we'll see. But I don't have a score yet. We'll do that for our Friday show on the podcast. But I'm going to take Baltimore to win this game.
I think, Jonas, you have a record of 8-8 on the season making predictions.
I think I'm still under 500.
Are you?
Maybe.
Okay. I think I'm at 9-7 at this point.
Yeah.
We both of us have been absolutely horrible at making predictions this season, but It's been kind of an unpredictable season for the Ravens and for the Steelers as well. Alex, where can everybody who wants to get the other side perspective for this game, where can everybody find your work?
Yeah, SteelersDepot.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. And for Ravens fans who may not want to read about the Steelers, but from our site standpoint, we do a scouting report on Baltimore each Friday. So that's going to drop tomorrow. It's going to be full schematic and individual report, offense, defense, and special teams. If you want the perspective of what a Steelers viewpoint thinks about Baltimore, then check out the site tomorrow.
And also, I should add, for the offseason, great prospect profiles throughout the NFL draft. Always appreciate you guys' work there.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot joining us here on the Ban Ravens podcast. We will be back on the other side of another quick break.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time.
All right, Jonas, just you and I the rest of the way. Let's preview this matchup between the Ravens and Steelers. Right now, the Steelers are home dogs. Ravens favored by 3.5 points. This is, of course, a rematch of a game that we saw mere 4 weeks ago in week 14, which the Ravens lost at home 27-22. This Steelers team looks a little bit different from the Steelers team that we saw 4 weeks ago. We just touched on the changes in, the missing pieces in offense, missing pieces in defense, but that was an ugly one in a season that has produced some clunkers. I think you and I did you predict the Steelers to win that game or the Ravens to win that game?
I think I had the Ravens to win that one.
I think most of us predicted the Ravens to win that game. It felt like they were finally getting momentum back on their side. They'd obviously just lost on Thanksgiving to the Bengals, but you thought, all right, that one was an anomaly. And then they lose by 5 at home to the Steelers, and not their best performance of the season.
No, I mean, it was a weird game. The Ravens outgained them by more than 100 yards. But the familiar things that have tripped up this Ravens team tripped them up in Baltimore, 2 for 6 in the red zone. They lost the turnover battle. Penalties haven't really been a huge issue for this team, but obviously you have the costly one on Travis Jones that goes against the Ravens, a flag that John Harbaugh said the NFL later that should not have been thrown and ultimately cost the Ravens 4 points because it turned a field goal into a touchdown based on how Pittsburgh finished that drive. You have the Isaiah Likely situation, which, is its own kind of can of worms. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens arguably outplayed Pittsburgh down the stretch. They were certainly the better team in that second half. I don't think the Steelers had a single first down in the first quarter, but the Ravens just could not finish the deal. And now they're having to win a game in Pittsburgh, which is a place that the Steelers have historically almost always finished the season out extremely well at.
Yeah. Well, Lamar Jackson back at practice. That's a positive sign. A full participant at practice as well on Wednesday. You and I will both be up at the Castle today, see if he is a full participant again. Of course, he was knocked out of the game 2 weeks ago with a back contusion after he was kneed in the back. Couldn't play last week. Tyler Huntley played well in his stead. John Harbaugh quashed any possibility that if Lamar Jackson were healthy, Tyler Huntley would start in his place. He said, he looked good. I'm optimistic. We'll see how it goes the rest of the week. And if he's healthy, he will play. Jonas, I think and I'm sure they are out there because I've heard from a few of them on social media. If there are fans out there that think that a healthy Lamar Jackson should sit for Tyler Huntley, I don't think that they have watched Ravens football since Lamar Jackson got drafted.
Yeah, I mean, we were here 4 years ago when Lamar was struggling to come back and Tyler Huntley was playing well enough and the offense was doing different things than it was with Lamar in there. And then we saw Tyler Huntley turn back into a pumpkin and become the kind of itinerant quarterback that he's been over his year. Meanwhile, Lamar went back to being what should have been a 2-time MVP. So Lamar presents a different set of challenges than Tyler Huntley. He's faster. I think especially now that he's had these 2 weeks off, he makes you cover every blade of grass. He's going to pump the ball downfield. He gives you more as a second chance quarterback. You still wonder what his accuracy is going to be, because if that back contusion is affecting his muscles at all, then maybe that'll affect his alignment on throws. And we just don't know how much rust he's going to have after not having thrown a ball in a week and a half. John Harbaugh said he looked good on Wednesday, but when you think back to this first Ravens-Steelers game, that was a game that Lamar was not accurate in. I think he finished barely above 50% accuracy. There were some just truly bad throws, especially in that first half. And the Ravens can't afford to be having that. Like, the one thing that Tyler Huntley has done well, and especially did well on Saturday against Green Bay, was on those 3rd and shorts when Todd Monken is asking him to get rid of the ball as a passer, he's hitting these guys. And the Ravens were exceptionally efficient on 3rd down. Part of that was Derrick Henry, but also Tyler Huntley just did a good job of taking the throws that were there. And I think, we're still all kind of in wait and see mode with Lamar in judging where he is actually right now at this point in the season, coming from the back contusion.
Yeah, it's not Lamar Jackson's fault that the Ravens coaching staff suddenly remembered that Derrick Henry plays for this football team. I mean, Tyler Huntley did everything well against the Packers. He played a perfectly fine game. He threw for 100 yards. I mean, he didn't have to do much. And Lamar Jackson has not had that same kind of commitment to the run from the coaching staff when he has been playing. So because the offense operated better against the Packers, I don't think was because Tyler Huntley was starting in that game. I think it was a combination of factors. I think it was the fact that Packers defense was pretty injury plagued. I think it was the fact that they scripted a great game plan, and they haven't really done that too many times this season. It starts and ends with Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP and should be 3-time MVP. Tyler Huntley has done fine in the 2 games that he has started this season against the Bears and Packers. But Lamar Jackson is Lamar frickin' Jackson. That's where the conversation starts and ends for me.
Yeah, and I think bigger picture, I keep coming back to this quote from Kyle Hamilton. I think it might have been after the Steelers game where, he said LeBron has off days, and Lamar has not had too many games this season where he's looked like LeBron. And if he is indeed fully healthy, and we've seen him get better, move better with those lower body injuries, receding further and further into the rear view. This is a game, primetime rival, good, not great defense, where you want to see a guy like Lamar put on the cape and just lift this team to victory. Like this, obviously the Ravens will take a win however they can get it, but I think the pressure is on Lamar. This is going to be like maybe the most watched non-Super Bowl game for the Ravens, non-playoff game for the Ravens in franchise history. Like, I think the Ravens game against the 49ers on Christmas Day a couple of years ago got close to 30 million viewers. This is Sunday Night Football on a non-holiday with so much on the line. There's going to be 35, 40 million people watching this game, letting this game influence how they think of Lamar. And there's probably a lot of people right now watching this or who are fans of the Ravens who've been, or even not fans of the Ravens who've been, engaging with some of the stuff that's been put out there by national people about, could Lamar be traded? Is this team better with Tyler Huntley? Is the relationship with John Harbaugh okay? And I think you need a kind of not get right game, but just like a game that reminds people of who you are, something that could inspire confidence in this team, something that this offense can get behind as it heads into a potential playoff run. We just have only seen bits and pieces of greatness from Lamar. We haven't really seen that full 4-quarter effort. And Pittsburgh's not going to make it easy. They never do against Lamar. But I think he's under like a ton of pressure because of everything that's happened in these past couple of weeks, because of the stakes of this game.
Yeah, let's talk about how much pressure John Harbaugh faces as well, because we just talked to Alex a little bit about John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, how there has kind of been this outside of referendum on both of their coaching lives, both of their job statuses based on the outcome of this game. And I want to make it clear that this is really an outside narrative that is kind of taken on a life of its own. This isn't based on anything that we've heard, from inside the castle about, well, John Harbaugh's coaching for his job or Mike Tomlin is coaching for his job. But there certainly is a lot of pressure on John Harbaugh to win this game. And I think if the Ravens lose this game, I think that there will be, as loud as the cries have been from the fan base to move on from John Harbaugh, those cries are only going to intensify over the next few weeks. And if the Ravens bring back John Harbaugh, he's going to be under tremendous scrutiny in 2026.
I just wonder how much of this can really change the temperature of things, either in the fan base or in Owens Mills, one winning drive. Like, you look online and Ravens fans, because of where this season started, because of the expectations for this year, because of the incredible Ravens teams that have frittered away things in the playoffs in previous years, I don't know how much security with it'll buy you a little bit of grace because of the setting, because it's against the Steelers, because maybe, I think Ravens fans are hopefully realizing that, like, John Harbaugh has gone to bat for Lamar in ways that maybe other coaches haven't gone to bat for their quarterback. Just like saying that this is not a normal back contusion, saying that we love Lamar. Even thinking back to this offseason, saying, like, as soon as Lamar signs his next deal, he's going to be made the highest paid player in the league. Like, whatever is going on behind the scenes in front of cameras, I think John Harbaugh has done everything he can to keep things copacetic. We don't really know how Lamar feels about that because we haven't asked him, because there hasn't been a lot of opportunities to ask him with these injuries. But, I think if John Harbaugh and the Ravens lose this on Sunday night, then you're going to wake up on Monday probably seeing his name on some hot seat lists, and not just for 2026, but for this offseason, because people realize he is a coach that would be very coveted outside of Baltimore. And would that influence his thinking or where he wants to be? Obviously, he wouldn't have probably the kind of alignment that he's enjoyed in Baltimore or anywhere else, unless maybe he goes to another place that'll give him more control over personnel. But, he's known Steve Bisciotti for a long time. He's known Ozzie Newsome for a long time. He's known Eric DeCosta for a long time, Lamar Jackson for a long time. And I think there is a benefit to that kind of comfort. But if Steve Bisciotti has decided that the only way that John Harbaugh can keep his job is by making a run to the AFC Championship game, then everything is kind of moot until that point.
Yeah. I think there are a couple ways for Steve Bisciotti to look at this. I said this a few weeks ago, but he could look at this season as a fluke. He could look, if the Ravens...
And just look around the NFL. Like, how many of the top teams that entered this, the teams that entered this year with the best Super Bowl odds have already been eliminated from postseason contention.
Yeah. Obviously, the Chiefs have been a massive disappointment this year. The Lions. It has been a fluky year in the NFL. Not a lot of teams that we expected to be near the top. Nobody from the outside expected the Patriots and Broncos to be battling it out for the 1 seed in the AFC. It's been a weird year. And maybe Steve Bisciotti looks at the season and says, Lamar missed a lot of time. Lamar wasn't quite himself when he came back.
No Matabike.
No Nnamdi Matabike. That put a real damper on our season. A lot of things went wrong, but we still believe in this coach. We still believe in this coaching staff to a certain extent. Maybe we make tweaks here and there, but we're going to run it back with this coach and with this quarterback. Or he can look at this and say, we made the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. We got bounced in the divisional round last year. We either made the playoffs or got bounced early in the playoffs, depending on what happens on Sunday. This is the latest in a downward trend. And if things are trending that starkly downward, then maybe you need to make a change.
Right. I mean, I think this wasn't the question, but I think probably the more immediate pressure for this game would be the coordinators. Like, if I'm Zach Orr, I can't have, there is a possibility that my job is on the line if I get torched by Aaron Rodgers for a second time in 5 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
I can't have
especially how the Steelers offense looked against the Browns.
Yeah, and just the utter lack of weapons on that team. Alex had totally justified praise for that Steelers offensive line, but again, that offensive line could not block a single, carve open a single hole in that game, in that run game for Pittsburgh in Week 14. And even Todd Monken, I think probably some of the bigger concerns with that are just the buy-in from players. But you look at the past couple of weeks when you have Devontae Walker blocking Rashawn Gary like he did, when you've heard the praise from John Harbaugh for guys like Rashad Bateman who haven't been getting the ball but have been finding ways to contribute in other ways, then maybe we're past the issue where there have been some discrepancies in terms of how Ravens players think about how the offense should be operated compared to what Todd Monken thinks is the optimal way for this offense to be operated. So if I'm the coordinators, I'm probably feeling a hotter seat than John Harbaugh or definitely Lamar Jackson. This could be a game, like I said, because of how big it is. You have to acknowledge that this, the results of this could have outsized consequences as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into this matchup. Let's talk about the Ravens offense against the Steelers defense. Now, some not great news on the injury front. Rashad Bateman missed practice on Wednesday with an illness. You hope that he's able to get enough fluids and come back. We obviously have seen Lamar Jackson miss time with illness this year. A lot of guys have missed time with illness in the NFL, it feels like, this year. Limited on Wednesday. Ronnie Stanley dealing with a knee injury. Patrick Ricard dealing with an ankle injury. And Charlie Kolar dealing with a nose.
Seemed fine in the locker room.
Did you just bump it into something?
These guys are wearing helmets, so must have.
I don't know what happened there. We'll have to. Charlie Kolar's a great quote, so maybe we'll have to ask him today what's going on with this schnoz. This Ravens offense obviously looked terrific when they committed to Derrick Henry a week ago. I'm curious to see how much they learned from that effort. If they see that effort as, okay, that was just us taking advantage of a very, very beleaguered Packers defense, or they, say this needs to be our modus operandi going forward. Does this need to be the way that we have to win, whoever is under center on Sunday? And we saw the Ravens bludgeon the Steelers on the ground a couple times last season. How committed do you think this coaching staff is to the run?
Well, you have to be committed, but you also have to be flexible. Just looking at some of the stats from that Week 14 game, like when the Steelers loaded the box, the Ravens could not run the ball well. And that has its own, set of risks for the Steelers, because when you drop that safety in, that means you're taking one guy out from the third level, which means that if you get Keaton Mitchell into the open field, or if Derrick Henry makes, Chuck Clark miss at that second level, can anyone stop him? There are risks and rewards to everything. But the Steelers loaded the box, dare the Ravens to run the ball in Week 14. And when they loaded the box, the Ravens couldn't run the ball well. So if you're Todd Monken, are you giving Lamar Jackson a little bit more latitude in, run pass options or canning plays and getting to quick hitters? We know that Pittsburgh likes to blitz Lamar. We know that they like to send guys at that line of scrimmage on early downs. I think not only for the benefit of the pass rush, but also just, plugging up those run lanes. So I think the Ravens should have opportunities on play action. I think they should have opportunities on the screen game, which is not really a part of this offense that we've seen featured in recent weeks. I wonder if maybe even without Justice Hill in there, we see something for Keaton Mitchell. We see, a tight end screen for Isaiah Likely. We see something for Zay Flowers on a play where they're expecting a 6 or 7 man pressure from Pittsburgh. So, this Ravens run game, as I wrote in a story that should be out right now, has been the best in the NFL since Week 14. Probably my favorite stat is the gap between the Ravens and the second place team in this 4-week span, which is the LA Rams, is about the same as the gap between the Rams and the 24th place New Orleans Saints in terms of total rushing yards. So wow. This is a Ravens run game that's looked more consistent. Finally, it's maintained its explosiveness, and they've done it for the past 6 quarters without Lamar Jackson. So if he is able, if he's willing, you would think that would give this Ravens run game a dimension that it's lacked. Lamar had a surprisingly good run game against the Steelers in Week 14. This is a Pittsburgh team that typically does a good job of limiting scrambles, limiting quarterback runs. I think the Ravens will probably have a regression to the mean in that case, but this has to be a run first approach unless the
circumstances dictate it.
unless the circumstances dictate that instead of the run, what you are actually doing is faking the run and just hitting Pittsburgh over the top.
Right. Lamar's numbers against the Steelers in his career, not great. 4-6 record against the Steelers, including the playoffs. Mike Tomlin has not made things easy for Lamar Jackson. Lamar has a 57% completion percentage. He's got more interceptions than touchdowns, than passing touchdowns against the Steelers. I mean, you talked about the run game, and I think we do have to give credit to the offensive line, this much maligned offensive line, for improving their play over the last 4 or 5 weeks. How much are you buying this offensive line in pass protection? Do you think that they're doing any better of a job there? They, with obviously the 2 guards, Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele, who have come under significant fire this season. Do you think that they've improved in pass protection as well, or is it just kind of the same old?
Yeah, I mean, I think any offensive line will look better when a team is running well. Like, you just, if you find yourself in more 3rd and 2s than 3rd and 10s, then it's going to be important to keep the defense off balance in that way. You still look at the tape and you still see Andrew Voorhees, falling to the ground, losing his balance. Falele can be a little bit aimless out there when he's looking for guys to pick up. But I think that the tackles have done a good job, which is very important in a game like this. Like when TJ Watt was healthy and he was playing with Nick Herbig and Alex Highsmith, the Ravens did a good job against that Steelers pass rush in week 14. Less than 25% of Lamar's dropbacks were pressured. That's his lowest in a game this season. When he was pressured, that's when things got a little bit hairy there. So it just, I think the Ravens should feel pretty good about being able to establish the kind of run game rhythm that they need to. But if they don't, and it's 3rd and 8, potential 3 and outs over and over again with that Steelers crowd, with that Steelers defense, with Mike Tomlin, delivering the fire and brimstone before the game in a pregame speech, you do wonder just how much juice this Steelers defense, despite its obvious limitations in the secondary, could have.
Yeah. All right. Other side of the ball. Ravens defense against the Steelers offense. I think the way that last season ended for that version of the Steelers team kind of hastened the departure of Russell Wilson.
Can't believe it feels like ages ago that he was on that Steelers team.
Yeah. Same with Justin Fields as well.
Yeah.
The way that I think there was a time in the middle of the 2024 season where Russell Wilson was playing pretty well. He kept throwing moon balls. You thought, all right, maybe Russell Wilson has a couple more years in the tank, and maybe this Steelers team will bring him back because they never have a plan, a long-term plan at quarterback. And then things crashed and burned in the final weeks, and it became clear, all right, this team needs to move on from Russell Wilson. There have been times this year where Aaron Rodgers has looked very good. Obviously, against the Ravens in week 14, he looked pretty darn good. But he has also had some absolute clunkers. And last week against the Browns was an absolute clunker without a lot of his weapons. But still, he did not look great under center. I think his future in Pittsburgh and maybe his future in the NFL might hang on the balance depending on how this game goes.
Yeah, I mean, he told reporters, I think yesterday, that he's open to the possibility of playing another year. Obviously, this just has not been a good year for him. It's been a Pittsburgh offense that succeeded on the strength of its run game and the occasional deep shot to DK Metcalf, as we saw in week 14. But you just look at him overall, like 30th of 33 quarterbacks in dropback success rate. So he's between Geno Smith and JJ McCarthy. That is not good company. And another year of experience, another year of wear and tear is not going to do him any good. And you watch some of the film breakdowns of him from that game against the Browns. Like, Arthur Smith is putting him in positions to succeed when the Steelers are in zone. The Browns were in zone, when the Browns were in man-to-man coverage. And he was just kind of doing his own thing, like pretending like he had Devontae Adams out there.
Yes.
And throwing to Scotty Miller when there's a clear void coming open underneath on 3rd and short. So I think probably there's got to be frustration with just how Aaron Rodgers does things, because he doesn't have the arm strength or the willingness to stand in the pocket and do things like he used to when he was in his 30s. So it's I just don't know where Pittsburgh would go after this season. Maybe, like we said, a Malik Willis, but you're just kind of back in this familiar purgatory, to borrow Alex's term, of you're not going to be, unless like a Ty Simpson falls to you in the middle of the first round and you really like what he could be, you're not going to get what you need to in terms of being able to reset that quarterback clock.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously not going to end up with a great draft pick. I don't think this is a great quarterback class, period. I don't think this is a great free agency quarterback class either.
No.
They're staring down the barrel of bringing Aaron Rodgers back, or I don't know, trading for Kyler Murray. Like if you're a Ravens fan, I think you can feel great about the fact that it's been how many years? 7, now 8 years since Ben Roethlisberger's retirement, and they just have not come up with a long-term plan there. In terms of the Ravens defense against the run, they were absolutely lights out against the Packers a week ago, holding Josh Jacobs to 3 rushing yards on 4 carries, season lows on both of those categories. And they played well in the run defense against the Steelers when they met 4 weeks ago. Just 17 carries for 34 yards the Steelers racked up against this Ravens defense. Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, both having pretty good seasons. Kenneth Gainwell having an amazing season out of nowhere as kind of a resurgent season for a journeyman. How do you see that matchup playing out?
Alex said that Pittsburgh has to run the ball, and I agree with him because I don't trust this Steelers passing offense to do much against the Ravens, even though this Ravens pass defense is certainly gettable. I just don't know, at what point you stop kind of banging your head into a brick wall if that's indeed what this Ravens run defense remains. Like, they've been one of the best run defenses in the NFL since mid-season point. They're averaging, I think, 70 or 80 yards allowed per game. I think under 4 yards per carry. Pittsburgh had very little luck against the Ravens in week 14. And now you take Darnell Washington out of the equation. So the jumbo looks that Pittsburgh has done a good job on become a little less scary to deal with because, sure, you might have that 6th offensive lineman, but Darnell Washington was basically a 7th offensive lineman. And even when he was on the field in week 14 against lighter Ravens personnel with, Kyle Hamilton in the box as your kind of de facto 3rd linebacker, they couldn't do a whole lot. So I wonder if this is a game where we just see Aaron Rodgers in empty sets a lot like he was against Cleveland. And I think that would help the Steelers just to kind of, sort out what the Ravens are doing defensively. If you're in empty, it's harder for a defense to kind of hide its intentions. You can be you can declutter things based on what a defense might be showing pre-snap to post-snap. But still, that doesn't leave a lot of protection for Aaron Rodgers, and you could pretty much guarantee that he's getting that ball out pretty quickly, which means that you don't have to worry too much about explosive plays unless this becomes a much better yards after the catch team like it was early in the season.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our predictions. Jonas, who do you have winning this game?
I like the Ravens in this one. I think, whether it's Lamar or whether it's Tyler Huntley, I just think this offense is better prepared for what this game holds. I just have no faith in the Steelers offense being able to move the ball reliably. I mean, like even if they're able to move the ball well between the 20s, what are you going to do in close quarters because you're taking away a red zone threat in Darnell Washington? You don't have DK Metcalf. I mean, MVS is 6'4", which surprised me when I looked at his bio because he doesn't feel like a 6'4" guy. No. This rushing offense, it had a rushing touchdown against the Ravens in week 14, but as we just said, it did not have a whole lot of luck otherwise. So even if Pittsburgh is okay on a down-to-down basis, I just don't think that they're going to have a whole lot of juice and explosives and scoring opportunities. And I think the Ravens, with the run game being what it is, with Lamar, having looked better in recent weeks, especially when you think back to the game against the Patriots, I just think this is a game where he rises to the occasion. And even if he doesn't look like an MVP, he just does enough for this team. He protects the ball, he keeps them on schedule, and I think they're going to come out of Pittsburgh with a 23-13 win.
I have a similar margin of victory. I've got 24-14.
There you go.
Yeah, just 1 point off on both sides. I agree. I don't really see Lamar Jackson coming back. It's possible because he's Lamar freaking Jackson. I don't think it's very likely that he comes back and has an MVP caliber performance just because he's missed a game and a half now. The back obviously is a serious thing to be dealing with. He has suffered a million injuries this season. He just hasn't looked like himself, and he hasn't put together too many MVP performances in general. I think that this Steelers offense might be truly broken without DK Metcalf, because that was really the thing that opened them up in the first matchup.
Just rattle off the names in this wide receiver room, Paul.
Calvin Austin.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's going to be available because of the hamstring injury.
MVS. I mean,
Adam Thielen.
who's
Scotty Miller played
100 years old.
Scotty Miller played 42 snaps against Cleveland.
Roman Wilson.
The third round pick who should be getting snaps, less than 10.
Yeah. It's very bad. And it is funny because, Alex alluded to this, but Aaron Rodgers still feels like he's playing with a group of Pro Bowlers out there. Like he's still throwing balls to them that are fade routes, that are hard to catch, that are go balls. It just doesn't feel like he knows. He is making up his mind at this stage in his career. He's not comfortable getting hit. He's not comfortable moving around in the pocket. So he's taking the snap and he's making up his mind as to where he's throwing the ball, even before he gets the ball. So to me, if you can just take away his first read on a lot of those throws, I think that you'll be okay.
Yeah, he'll throw the check down, you hunt and rally, and you live to face a 3rd and 5.
Exactly. And as poorly as the Ravens played in their game 4 weeks ago, they were within a third step from Isaiah Likely of potentially winning that game. So I have the Ravens winning by 10. Let us know what you think. Write us a 5-star review. Give us a thumbs up. Anywhere that you get your podcasts. Share this with your friends as well. We will have another episode for you early Monday morning. Jonas, what do you have coming on the banner.com where people can subscribe $1 for 6 months?
Yeah, we teased it earlier, but just a story on the Ravens' physicality. They're knocking guys out of games. They're running the ball better than any team in the NFL. They're defending the run better than almost any team in the NFL. This is a game where you need to kind of bow up physically. And obviously Pittsburgh is going to be one hell of a test because Mike Tomlin's built this team's ethos in the same way that John Harbaugh has. But I think the Ravens have to feel like they go into a lot of games like the stronger team, like the more conditioned team. And that's borne out based on how many guys are falling over the course of these games that we've seen in recent weeks.
Yeah. Subscribe to The Banner.
Shout out to The Banner.
Gianna Hahn, Kyle Goon, plenty more for you there as well. We'll see you Monday morning in Pittsburgh. Jonas, should be cold, should be dark, should be a fun time. The season comes down to this.